Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast as always. And we are rolling along with the rest of the NFL games. After Thursday, we had a bunch of stuff for you guys looking at the rest of this week here with play props in the NFL for week 13. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along because we're bringing you this each and every week, moving throughout the rest of this season and into the playoffs. Got plenty of great stuff as well on the lines, including the NBA Coast to Coast pod and plenty of looks for the NFL this week as well. So definitely jump in and subscribe to that page and don't miss any of the action. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first play a prop here for the rest of this week, but would also look pretty good on the week there for Thanksgiving. This little 3-2 and no Tommy DeVito, we should say, that played in that one. So we didn't have a pick there, but overall pretty happy with the way that things turned out.
Yeah, and one pick still to go. We don't know how Jacoby Myers will do here on Friday as we record, but I'm going to kick off this Sunday slate actually with Monday night pick and take Bo Nix, 222 and a half passing yards. Shop around. I mean, this number will fluctuate a little bit as passing yards do, but I think he's good for 225 plus with the Browns coming to town here. Look, the training wheels have been off for Bo. And somebody asked me, who's going to be the best quarterback of these rookies? Eventually, there's been arguments about Jaden versus Caleb this year. I think maybe the best career might belong to Bo Nix. So as long as he stays attached to the hip with Sean Payton, he's going to look really good. He's just scheming up such easy things for a young quarterback. And I mean, he's super athletic, super talented, well able to throw off different platforms. And he's just getting these wide open looks to rack up yardage. The Broncos don't really have much of a run game. 94 yards per game in their last 5 years is kind of above expectations for me. And Bo in that span has attempted 35 passes a game. The yards per attempt are way up as he's actually getting to attack down the field. A lot of these crossers are wide open, like I'm saying. And he's really only been close to going under this in at Baltimore, at KC matchups, at championship caliber teams. He actually did get over though in Baltimore, right? So just absolutely dominant his last two at home. The Broncos were time of possession, just stomped out the Falcons and Panthers. And now Cleveland comes to town. Classic letdown spot for them after they got up for a home game in the elements, beat the Steelers. They just have not been a team on the road that brings it anywhere in the last two seasons, really. They allowed 9.5 more points per game. And there were some gross low scoring games when Deshaun Watson was at the helm there because they couldn't score. But their first road game with Jameis, right? Let's not forget they go to NOLA. Jameis nearly passes for 400. They allow 450 yards. Oh, I'm sorry, nearly 500 yards to the Saints. So even though the Saints had a ton of success rushing, 214, Taysom Hill runs wild. Derek Carr still passed for 245, right? The team goes for 260. 8.6 yards per attempt. The Browns' pass defense is mediocre at best. Greg Newsome not having a good year. So I just expect Bo to do very well, for this to be kind of a coming out party for him in prime time. And if you want to look at one of his receivers specifically, Devon Vele, only 33.5 yards, should get to match up with Newsome, who has been struggling.
Yeah, if you want to take a wide receiver, we're still overlooking Courtland Sutton, who's had an awesome year and is a big reason that Bo Nix is as good as he is. And we're big Bo Nix fans on this show. We stand Bo Nix over here because, we liked the rushing at the beginning of the year and we're really impressed by it. And I still am. But I'm just also super impressed with his poise in the pocket. He's been moving around in that thing so well. That's really what stands out, is sort of the mobility inside the pocket as well for Bo Nix. And that's really allowed him to give guys extra time and allow them to get more open. And that's why his ADOT continues, his average target to throw continues to just rise up. And they continue to sort of, like you said, open up the game for him and stop limiting the plays that they'll call for him. It's really opened up not only Courtland Sutton, really more than anybody, Courtland Sutton, but then Devon Vele out of the slot where he's running the most of his routes. That's another great option that he added. But I just want to really talk about Courtland Sutton being a really big option on the outside for him and really stepping up into the role that we all thought he was going to be when he was drafted around the same time as Jerry Jeudy. But let me go to that Saints team that you were just the aforementioned team you were talking about here and look at Taysom Hill, which is very fun. And I kind of like just the receiving at 24.5. I think that's a lovely look. And you can take that by itself, but I have zero problem adding the rushing to it to get to 62.5 rushing receiving. And since the OC, last week versus Cleveland, we were just talking about that game, 10 targets, 8 catches, 50 yards. I would say David Carr kind of opened up. Did I do it again? It's David. It's David. No, Derek. I did it again. I always do it. It's
It's
Derek.
awesome. They didn't change their OC. They changed the head coach.
Or the HC, excuse me, not the OC yet. But since they've updated the head coach at this point, which obviously Dennis Allen wasn't long for the job, that one game versus Cleveland, a bunch of targets, and that's what really why I like the passing game so much for him. I think Derek opened up the run game. We saw Taysom Hill catch a couple big runs there after this team was just loading up and not loading up the box, rather keeping light boxes out there because they were really worried about that pass game, both on the outside and really down the middle of the field with Kamara and Taysom Hill, to be honest. And that kind of opened up the rushing. So I'm good with opening up the rushing because I could see adding the rushing rather, because I could see that happen once again. The last 2 weeks before, 3 weeks ago, starting with like basically his last 3 games, 2 receptions against Carolina week 9, 41 yards, and then 2 receptions, 36 yards versus Atlanta in week 10. Also had an 88-yarder called back on a holding penalty from a short reception that he caught. So, yeah, if you look at the way that the new head coach, Darren Rizzi, is talking about him as well, that was a really easy find online, was just to go, what's the coaching staff saying about Taysom Hill here? And the quote is that the usage in the last couple of weeks is really what they have been that they project moving forward for him as well. Everywhere, right? And that's why I added the rush and the receiving, because they've made it clear that they're going to use him as that Swiss Army knife, and they will up the usage in the pass game as we see the targets continue to stay high. I mean, 10 led the team last week versus the Browns. So yeah, I think he's going to continue to be involved in that, and we already know what he's going to do for the run game. So I really like him moving forward this season.
Yeah, Taysom, 10 targets. Nobody else on the team had more than 4, right? I mean, they don't have Olave. They don't really have any consistent receiver to go to. That MVS is just going to be a downfield threat. So, I mean, he is one of their top receiving options. I agree that the receiving probably over the rushing is the look here, but in general, yeah, he's just going to get the touches. Like, I mean, he's been such a fun debate in the fantasy community for the last couple of years, because it's like, well, if he just got a chance to like play some quarterback and do this and that, and everybody would laugh you off, like, yeah, come on, that's ridiculous. Like, he's not that guy, but maybe it was just Dennis Allen being like, I don't know what to do. Who's widely regarded as one of the worst coaches that was out there. And Riz is just in there like, look, this guy is like just a freaking bear to tackle. Like get him the ball in space, get him going downhill. And the Rams, don't forget, just gave up 314 rushing yards. Could not tackle Saquon Barkley worth a damn. So I would expect the Saints to kind of push that envelope and give Taysom the ball out of the Wildcat, or just hand it off to him early and often.
Yeah.
I'm going to take our one under here as we continue to go 5 overs, 1 under here on the show. Is Kenneth Walker, 61.5 rush yards. It might be available at 62. Some places I'm fine with it at 60, because he's averaging 44 in his last 7. He's not even getting more than 14 rush attempts. He's running more and more routes as the Seahawks just give up on the run game, because it's been frankly pathetic. Like the blocking has been pretty pathetic from this team. Abraham Lucas might come back in this game, and that might help a little bit, but I don't know if one man can just turn around an entire unit that has just been unable to generate any kind of adjusted line yards. I mean, the reason I think this is inflated is because the Jets D has struggled this year, especially in run defense. But CJ Mosley back to full practice. He is probably the most essential guy in that front 7. He is the signal caller. He's the best player. He's the best tackler. He will get them organized. He will help them, limit the run, which they already did last week. Like, understanding after their complete embarrassment in Arizona, right? That they have to be able to stop the run and not just, be a great pass defense, which had been Jets ball in the past couple of years. So they hold Jonathan Taylor to just 2.4 yards per carry and 57 yards, well under his prop, under this prop as well. That's a pretty good run blocking scheme. The Colts, the Seahawks are dead last in adjusted line yards. So game script wise, like, I expect this to be kind of choppy, very, defensive oriented. I think the Seahawks defense is by far the best unit on the field here. Rodgers passing prop is falling because it opened too high at 224. So I don't expect the Jets to turn this into necessarily a high scoring back and forth game. But at the same time, like, I don't think the Seahawks can run the ball. Like, they have the lowest run play rate on the road this season by far. They're not even playing fast. They might be sleepy here going west to east. I don't see Walker who's 44th among running backs in explosive play rate, and his run blocking is 64th. So it's not really his fault, but I don't see him going off in this spot.
Yeah. Yeah, he reminds me a lot at times of like DeAndre Swift. I think he's got better vision probably, but he's not as good in these tight squirmy spaces, and he's not getting holes from the worst run blocking scheme in the league right now in Seattle, especially according to adjusted yards before contact, like you mentioned. And yeah, this Jets defense, as bad as they've been at times, or at least underperforming at times over the course of the season, they have up that run D. They are eighth in adjusted yards before contact on the defensive line. So they're getting good push with the defensive line, getting into the backfield a bit as well, and touching those running backs before they're able to get too much. And yeah, I mean, look, Kenneth Walker, amazing tackle breaker, amazing athlete, but he's not going to have time. And I do this personally. I undervalue players like CJ Mosley, who are super important to a run defense beyond just their ability to make tackles. Like CJ Mosley, like you said, is the quarterback. If your teammates aren't in position to team tackle, then it doesn't matter how good you are. And CJ Mosley is just as important for his quarterbacking of that defense, if not more so than even just his ability to chase down rushers. So yeah, let me go to another rusher though here, Gus the Bus, and I hit him last week 4-1. I wasn't able to get it out on the show originally, but he was 4-1 for a tutty. Got that a little bit late for him, and he rewarded us with a last second touchdown there. But he was in the game because Dobbins was a little bit banged up with that knee, and so it's really just going to be mostly him. I suppose we'll see Kamani Vidal a bit, probably more in the pass game. The running back out of Troy, who had an amazing career by the way in college. I've kind of been waiting for him to break out, but I don't think it's going to be this year. So they're still going to be going to Gus because this team is very much in the playoff hunt for the Chargers, and they're going up against the Falcons, front seven, pillow soft, as Nate likes to call it. And I think that's completely accurate. And it's in part by design. Like, they're not getting pressure. They're not really getting up the field. There is a bit of like, let's sit back and relax and make sure quarterbacks don't get yards, et cetera, et cetera. But like at the end of the day, they are very soft. If you look at them on defense, especially in the adjusted yards before contact for them, they're all the way down at about 17. No, now they're down to 19. They were down 17 last week. And even in the last 4 weeks alone, they're down to 26th in adjusted yards before contact. So they're not getting much push with that defensive line. And for the Chargers, yeah, it's been pretty good. I mean, their lines on both sides of the ball have definitely been doing their thing all season. And the Chargers, especially over the course of the last weeks, they've been a little bit better at the pass blocking here. But I think in this matchup as well, like, there's no reason to try to force the ball downfield when you're going to have a lot of green sort of in the 5 to 10 yard range with all the light boxes that you see from Atlanta as well. Should mention, like, they really do leave their defensive line out there to dry at most, sort of bringing 5 guys and then really leaving those light boxes, like we said, just trying to stay away from giving up the big play with that defensive secondary. It's a weird, honestly, to me, I don't get it, but I prefer pressure for my teams. But what are you going to do? And yeah, at home, they've been even worse in terms of defending the run game there. 133 yards per game that they're allowing in their home building. And you look at even just some of the recent numbers. I mean, they made Javonte Williams look amazing. They've also obviously made everybody on NOLA look good, like we talked about recently. And then Dallas as well, with the run game that has nothing. And we're talking about them allowing more than 4.5 yards per carry to these three, like, average at best, if not below average, almost awful for the Cowboys for sure, right? Like, it's not very impressive to be able to not be able to limit some really bad run offenses to anything less than 4.5 yards rushing. So yeah, per carry there, I think Gus is going to still have some success if he looks at 12 to 13 rushes. We're talking 50 yards for sure for my guy.
Yeah, and Hassan Jenkins saw a lot of time there against the Ravens, and Edwards didn't do much, but that's just a completely different matchup than you'll see almost anywhere else, right? This is the polar opposite of the Falcons in terms of they sell out to stop the run. The Falcons, like you said, light boxes. There's no way they're going to stack the box the way Herbert's throwing downfield, right? They're going to drop more guys in coverage. They're going to give up a chunk here or there. And Gus is going to get you 4 to 6 yards in a cloud of dust. Like, he is Greg Roman's guy, and now he has to deploy him as the guy with Dobbins out. At least, a steady enough workload to probably get us to 50 yards. So, let me close it out with the Rook, Xavier Legit, 41.5 receiving yards. And I like this one because, I mean, that's exactly what he's averaging in these last 4 since Bryce Young got back in the lineup, since Bryce Young got a second lease on NFL life and started playing much, much better. So that's what he's averaging. That's just where they hang the prop, but that's not really accounting for matchup or the potential for more, which you see 73.5 air yards per game for the Rook, 100% route participation in his last two, goes for 56 yards on 88 air yards against the Chiefs' struggling secondary, and he has a 23-yard catch or more in all four of these starts. So the big play is there. Tampa Bay at one point a couple weeks ago was dead last in explosive pass plays allowed. Like, they really struggle to limit these pass plays down the field. They're facing the second highest pass play rate on the road, giving up the third most percentage of their yards on the road and fifth most receiving yards overall to receivers on the year. Leggett, I like him the most here because I think he's going to get Jamel Dean in coverage, and he's a big boy, man. 6'1", 206. He is not your average corner in the NFL, and he missed almost half the season with a hamstring injury. Came back in Week 12 against the Giants, didn't get torched because, I mean, it was Tommy DeVito back there. But on the season, he is 109th of qualifying corners in man coverage rating, and you're now dealing with a rookie who is extremely quick and athletic. Should get plenty of separation here. Bryce Young, again, playing better. If Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's out, I think he'll have some good time to throw here. Like, that Bucs defense isn't scaring many people right now on the road, and I think this is going to be a good atmosphere for fantasy on both sides, given the Panthers defense. So yeah, I mean, let's target a low prop here with Legit.
Yeah, I can tell you from firsthand experience of watching Tommy Cutlets play against Tampa Bay recently, that man was going down every fifth drop back. He was just done, right? And I was noticing as well, and they showed it on the broadcast. Like, if he had a half a second more, a couple of different times, and to be fair to his offensive line, he was just like tucking and running as soon as he like even felt a bit of pressure, he was out. But it led to like a ton of guys being open downfield. Malik Neighbors was always open. Wendell Robinson, who I just think is one of the worst route runners the Giants have seen, also wide open, running his 6-yard crossing routes. Like, there was stuff there, and I think Xavier Legette's going to have some yak in this one big time, and that's why I do like the receiving. I don't even mind the rushing. They've started using he and McCole Hardman a lot more in the run game as well. Like, one rush for this dude, he's going to fall forward and get like 4.5 rushing yards. So I like everything for Legette in this one. I think they're going to use him in some creative ways against that defense. So let me close it out here with one of the aforementioned rookie quarterbacks that is up for maybe being one of the best in the league in the near future. That's Jaden Daniels. I'm going to take him on the rush yards. 37.5 rush yards. Showed last week that he was healthy against the Cowboys. And that's really what I like, is this number is not taking into account like that they're probably going to go back to a bit more heavy running with their quarterback game script with design plays. Last week, the design plays for him was really nice. They went up to about 4 designed runs that they were like, we're making sure that we get you some yardage here on these plays, not to mention about 3 other rushes that he had based on being flushed out of the pocket by that Cowboys defense. And this Tennessee defense is very good, very, very good. The one place that it's not is limiting quarterback rushing yards, right? That's where they're in the bottom 10 in the league. They're 25th allowing QB rushing yards on the season. They've in the bottom 10 as well in terms of the amount of attempts from the quarterback against them, and that's in part because of that pressure, which it's pretty good. I mean, their pass rush is about 13th in terms of pressure percentage on the season. They've been a very, very good run defense, but that's exactly what I love to see, is the 4th ranked rush defense against everybody except for quarterbacks, right? So they limit all of the stuff that running backs want to do down the middle, especially, as we know, where they're going to be clogging things up really well. And that's not what we need from Jaden Daniels, right? He's going to be called on the outside. We're going to see some option runs as well for him and stuff like that. So with the 7 attempts from last week, that's what I'm looking for this week. I'm looking for another 3 to 4 design runs with Eckler doubtful. We saw him leave that game with concussion, and that's really another moment in time where Daniels started to up the usage as a runner rather than just a passer once he lost his starting back. And Brian Robinson Jr. is still questionable and been hobbled for the last 4 weeks and most of the season as well, to be honest, for BRJ. So I think that with the uptick in usage for this man in the run game, I think this is a great moment to expect him to run the ball 5 to 7 times and get that 38 yards.
Yeah, I mean, what you look for with these running quarterbacks is the interior pressure. The reason we've been able to target and hit this against the Giants a couple times, and that's what the Titans do. They shut down the interior run, and then they get pressure up the middle, which will just force Daniels to get outside the pocket and get some rush yards. And yeah, I told you I like it because I don't like their passing offense right now. It's been miserable. The Titans have been very good in coverage lately. So I wouldn't take Jaden to have a lot of passing yards here. I would definitely look at Jeremy McNichols, whether,
Yeah.
maybe you can get a really low number if Brian Robinson is active, but like, yeah, he's been so banged up. They don't need him that much in this game. I think McNichols has an above expectation day here as him and Daniels. Yeah, maybe run some read option stuff together and get it going that way in the red zone.
Yeah, I think that's going to be what they have to do. So I'm with you on that one. That's all the time we have for the rest of week 13 on these NFL player props. Make sure you subscribe to that page. Still probably can get Jacoby Myers on Friday if you're seeing this. Love that from the Thanksgiving video. Nate brought that with the 5.5 receptions for him. So a little bonus pick if you're still around. And until we see you next, happy betting.